If you have ever used Mail Merge to customize your letters to customers, you are going to love Data Merge inside of Adobe Photoshop. This is like Mail Merge on steroids. It allows you to create custom designs for your clients based on data that you have. This video demonstrates the basics of customizing your Photoshop designs based on data. Here are 6 easy steps to follow. Number 1, create your design in Photoshop. Number 2, organize and label your layers. Number 3, define variables inside of Photoshop. Number 4, create your data file in a CSV or a TXT file. Export data files. Number 5. And number 6, process your images into other formats. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, you need to create your design inside of Photoshop. As you can see here, I've created a simple design showing the flashlight illuminating the person's name, as well as an imprint of the person's name on the flashlight. The letter on the document also includes the person's name, as well as a customized website address that somebody can go to for this website. Now, the purpose of this is to attract somebody's attention. When I receive mail and it has my name not just on the letterhead but scattered throughout the design, I'm more inclined to open it, to read it, to find interest in it. And so that's the hope with a design like this, that the reader will look at the mail and they'll say, wait, let me check this out. It has my name on it. It's more personal. And they might take it more serious and maybe spend more money with your company. So with that, I have a simple design here. I have this broken up into a couple of layers. First of all, I have a background picture. You can see an image there. I have actually changed the hue of this flashlight from blue to purple. And I have the salutation set up right here separately. And I have the name on the pen where we're going to put a design of the name there. And right here I have the name coming out of the flashlight with a glow added to it. And there's a custom website built here as well. Now what I want to do is I want to create hundreds of designs with this exact same design, but I want to change the text to be the person's name who's receiving this. I also have done a survey and I have data that indicates some of my potential customers prefer blue to purple. And so I have 2 different options. They can either get a blue mailer with a blue company logo, or they can get a purple one based on the data that we have received. So let me show you how to do this. We've created our design inside of Photoshop. We've organized our design by labeling all of our layers and labeling them something simple so that we can remember. Now what we need to do is define variables inside of Photoshop. To do this, you go up to Image, click on Variables, and then choose Define. This is going to bring up a dialog box. This dialog box right here shows us the layers. This actually corresponds to all of the layers that I have set up in my Layers panel. I'm going to define the web layer, and I'm going to replace it. I'm going to click Text Replacement because I want to change this with text from my data. And I'm going to give it a name of Web. Now when you give these names, don't use funky characters like slashes or exclamation points. In fact, I like to keep it simple. I use all lowercase because it is case sensitive when you replace the text. So what I do is I'm doing all lowercase, and what this does is it allows me to have fewer mistakes in the long run. No spaces. There are some characters you can use, such as a dash or a hyphen, but I prefer to keep it simple, all lowercase with no spaces. So now there's an asterisk here. This indicates that this layer has some sort of variable defined. Let's go ahead and define the other variables as well. Name, we're going to go ahead and text replace that one. We're going to call it name. Pretty simple, easy enough to remember. And let's move on to the next one. Name pen. Now for this one, I'm going to change it and the name's going to be the exact same again. So I'm going to click on text replacement. I'm going to call it name again. Now when I do this, sometimes it comes up with an error saying you already have that, but that's okay if it does. It will tell me on the side here if I have, oh, there we go, there's the error. The variable name is already in use. Do you want to use this? And yes, I want to use it. And now it shows me that it's being used in more than one place. I'm going to go to salutation, and again, I want to replace it with the variable that is going to be called name. And now when I move on to the next one, hue saturation, again it comes up with the same error, and it shows me which other variables are where name is also being used on other layers. So it's being used on those 3, but that's fine because that's how my design is. I'm going to move on to hue and saturation. Now this one is a little bit different. Notice how it doesn't say text replacement. That's because it's smart enough to realize that hue and saturation is not text. It's just an effect applied to this layer. So what I want to do is change the visibility. I want this to either be on or off. Let's say my data has indicated whether somebody wants a purple or a blue, or maybe has a preference of their color choice. So I can go ahead and change the visibility to turn on or off my hue and saturation layer to change the color of my design. And I'm going to go ahead and change this variable to be something a little bit more simple, such as color. And let's move on to the next one. The last one, picture, that's the background picture. I'm not going to change anything. If you do have designs where you do want to change pictures, when you have a picture, you can actually choose pixel replacement and you can change it to another picture. To do that, you simply save all the pictures that you want to replace inside the same folder as this Photoshop file. I'm going to ignore that one for right now. So what we have just done is defined all of our variables. Each layer is a variable, or it can change based on the data that we have. I'm going to now show you, if we switch this to data sets, it's going to allow me to connect this to some data. I'm actually going to hit OK. You just wanted to show you can get it from here as well, but I'm going to hit OK. You can also access this by going up to Image, Variables, Data Sets, and it takes you to the same spot. Now you could come here and you could type in each of the data sets by simply clicking here and typing each one. But let's say I have hundreds or thousands of clients. I don't want to have to type in each one and choose each variable. Instead, I want to create a data file that has all of this information. So what I'm going to use is I've already created my data here, and it's in a text file, a TXT file. You can either have a CSV or a TXT file saved. You can create your file inside of, let's say, Excel. Maybe you download all the data that you have and you can go through and clean it up inside of Excel. And in here you can see I have three different fields or labels. I have name, web, color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the name, insert this web address, and insert the color. Now notice how it says true or false. All this is telling us is whether this is visible or not visible. That's all the true or false is saying. So I'm going to go ahead and import that data. So I click on Import, and I'm going to select a file, and I have my file right here. If your file is not shown, it may be looking for a text file, and maybe your file is a CSV file, or you may not have saved it as a TXT or a CSV file. You can change or toggle between a text file or a CSV file here. Mine is a text file, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. I click on Load, and now I'm going to go ahead and choose Automatic, and it says Replace Existing Data Sets. I don't have any data sets, but I'm going to keep it there. I don't want to use first column for data set names because mine was not set up that way. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now when I do that, you may not have seen it, but Photoshop started doing something funky back here, kind of toggled between a couple of the data sets. And I can see here this has populated the different data that I have created into here, and it calls it a data set 1. I could rename this if I like, but I'm going to keep it as it is right now. I'm going to click to data set number 2, and notice how it toggles between my original and my new one, and it's updated everything here. The color of the flashlight, the color of the logo have changed, the text has changed. I can continue on checking all of my data sets, and again I can see it looks like it's correct, and I can go through all my data sets. Now if I have 100, 200, 1,000 different data sets, I may not go through each one, but maybe I can go through the first couple just to make sure that everything is working correctly. If it is working correctly and everything looks fine, I'm going to simply hit OK. Now it goes back to normal and it looks like nothing has been done. This is because it has the information stored, but we need to create the files now. To create the files from this, simply go up to File, Export, Data Sets as Files. Now we have to do the previous steps or this won't work. It'll be grayed out. So if it's grayed out, that means you missed one of the previous steps. You might go back and make sure that your image, go up to Image, Variables, make sure that you've defined and set up data sets. When you set up your your data sets, sometimes an error comes up. I will talk about that at the end. So let's go ahead and export these. We go up to File, and we're going to go down to Export, and we're going to export data sets as files. And what this allows you to do is export all of the files that you've created. You can choose where you're going to do it. You can choose which data sets. Maybe there's specific ones you want to do. I'm going to choose all because it just makes more sense to do them all. And I'm going to call this Custom Mailer. Now I can add in different extensions that I want to include here. I'm just going to call it Custom Mailer Data Set and give it a number. That way it's unique. We can save it as a capital or lowercase .psd. You can make it compatible with a Mac or Unix. I'm just going to keep mine set right now as a Windows. So now I have all my settings selected. I simply click OK. And it runs through, and it's going through, and it's actually creating each of these files that I have wanted to mail out to all of the individuals. And it takes Photoshop a few minutes to run through everything, but it does it a lot faster than me having to go in and change each of the designs myself. Now that it's done, I can go to that folder and I can find all of those Photoshop images. And I can see that it's actually created these Photoshop images right here. But what I want to do is turn these all into JPEGs. Maybe I'm going to put these all on the web or somewhere different. Or maybe the printer needs them to be a TIFF. So now what I want to do is go up to File, go down to Scripts, Image Processor, and I'm going to select a folder. And I'm going to choose the type of file I would like to save it as. I'm going to save it as a JPEG, quality set to 10, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'm making sure it stays in the same location. And what Photoshop is doing is it's opening up each of the files and it's converting it to a JPEG so that we can use that image. So if you have a long list of 100, 1,000 names, this may take a while, but it's a good time to get up, take a break, stretch a little bit, come back to your computer while the computer is doing all the work. When it's done, you can then go and check your documents. It creates a folder for you called JPEGs, and I'm going to open up our custom mailer and see. Let me resize this window here. Whoops. So now I can go through and I can see that my custom mailer has automatically changed the person's name throughout to the different variables I've located. It's in the web address as well. It's the purple flashlight. I can click through and I can notice that the picture has changed again. The names have changed, the picture's changed, the color. So this is a way that you can create custom designs to really draw the attention of your clients or your customers without having to create an individual product for each person. Now this is a basic example of what you can do by changing one color, by changing a few words. You can get a lot more in depth by changing more pictures. Maybe we have a survey that indicates 20 different colors that they like, or maybe we include pictures of things related to their interests, or maybe we even change the entire design based on some of the data that we have. So this is some of the potential and power of using data merge inside of Photoshop. My recommendation is to start with simple designs and work up from there. One thing I mentioned earlier is that when you're doing your designs, you may come up with some errors. Let me just demonstrate real quick one of the errors that is very common when you're doing data merge inside of Photoshop. Let me open up our data merge file. So one thing that happens, let's say that I have gone through and I have defined my variables, and I'm going to go ahead and define, I'm just going to do one for right now to show you the error. Text replacement. Let's say I call this Internet. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and let me just define my, there we go, image, variables, data sets. Let me import that same data set. Now if I go ahead and choose it, it comes up with this error. Could not parse the file contents as a data set. There are too many variable names in the first line of the text file. So what does that mean exactly? It's kind of confusing at first when you get it and you're like, what is this error? I don't know what's going on. What that error basically saying is that you have these three different data sets and they don't match what you have here. So that's something that's a little bit different than when you do mail merge. When you do mail merge, maybe you have more data fields than you need and you only use the ones that you need. In Photoshop, you can't have more or less than what you need. You have to have the same amount. So what that means is wherever you define a variable inside of your document, you have to have the exact variables. If you don't have these variables, or if the variable is off even by a different capitalization of the letter, you may get that error. So it's a little bit finicky. Just make sure that you name everything clearly and that all your names match with your variables, that you don't have any spelling errors between a variable name and your data set. And by doing that, you're going to have much more success, and you're going to be able to build designs that are going to draw the attention of your clients much more. Good luck and enjoy designing.